Good morning, everybody. It's lovely to see you, and thank you for spending this bit of time with me. My name's Emma. I'm the CEO of the League Against Cruel Sports. I've been there for actually almost exactly a year. It was my one-year anniversary a couple of weeks ago. And before I was at the League, I was at the RSPCA. Some of you may have heard a bit about that yesterday. Is that like a cue word? If I say RSPCA, the dogs start barking. That's very good training. Previous to that, I've been at Compassion in World Farming and also at World Animal Protection and Global Canopy, and just knocked around the movement for ages. And so I came into an organisation that is 100 years old, a very established organisation founded by these guys, Ernest Bell, George Greenwood, and Henry B. Amos, known at the League as Good Tash, No Tash, which is a bit of a shame. But they might be names that are familiar to you because they also founded a lot of the vegan and vegetarian movements and did a lot for animal rights over 100 years ago, so real pioneers. And the League campaigns to end the cruel use of animals in sports. And we interpret sport very broadly to be the cruel use of animals for fun or for entertainment. And we mainly focus on hunting of foxes and hares and mink and otter and, well, any animal you can imagine, really. Shooting of grouse, of pheasant, of partridge, greyhound racing, in which we've had some great news that we've shared with the sector recently, and dogfighting, which sadly still happens a lot, despite being illegal and hidden underground does still happen a lot. So those four areas are the main focus of the organisation and have been for a very long time. So I had a real challenge because this is my first CEO role, a 100-year-old organisation that knows what it does and knows what it's doing. What can I bring to that organisation? What can I add? It was quite daunting. There were a few quite panicky days of thinking, what on earth am I going to do on day one? How does this work? So what I decided to do was to look around the movement and think about what I'd learned from other organisations. And I called this talk Learning from the Future because for me, one of the big changes that's happened over the last 5 to 10 years is this growth in entrepreneurial, small, start-up animal protection organisations. There are loads of them and it's fantastic. And that's been a big change. But actually, having been here this weekend, I think I've completely mistitled this report, and it's actually just learning from people who are wiser and do things better than I do, no matter what parts of the organisations they come from, what generation they're in. So I looked around and I thought, what can I borrow from other organisations? So first, from organisations like Animal Rising, I wanted to bring in the idea that it takes all of us in all of our different ways of working. And what I particularly learned was from the work around the Grand National, where Animal Rising were very bravely going over the fences and stopping the race. I was at the RSPCA at the time, and at almost exactly the same time was in the boardroom with the British Horse Racing Authority, telling them they needed to change what they needed to do. And the combination of that, led by Animal Rising, absolutely, I think is what led to some of that change happening. So that idea that no matter what role you play, if you coordinate and you collaborate, it leads to greater change, and that it takes all of us. And so for the League, the organisation had become a little bit isolated. So one of the first things I did, having learned from that, was to reach out to partner organisations in the movement, particularly the Hunt Sabs, who are here today, who we have a really warm relationship now. Hi, Simon. And try and make sure that we're there, we're working together, we'll work with anybody who wants to work with us. And the loveliest thing about that was that everybody said, yes, of course we want to work with you, that would be great. And people were very generous and very giving of their time. So from people like ProVeg, like Bryant Research, I learned the idea of talking about an alternative. This was quite tricky in the League's area of work. But we can see from those organisations that when you're not just talking about ending something, banning it, when you're actually promoting something else or talking about the opportunity for something else, that gives you a lot more things to talk about and a different tone that you can take sometimes as well. So in my field, There are different forms of hunting, and there is a form of hunting called clean boot hunting, which is done with bloodhounds. So a bunch of unusual, shall we say, people run, and then they're chased by bloodhounds, and then people on horses chase them. Now, it is not perfect. It still involves animals. You have to regulate it very carefully, but it has no impact on wild animals, provided you're careful about where you go. But the hunts get to keep their red coats, they get to blow their horns, they get to ride around the countryside. And what talking about that alternative did, not promoting it, talking about it did, was to fire an absolute bullet through all of those arguments about losing tradition, identity, contribution to the rural economy, because instead of just saying, stop this, we were saying, do this instead. We still say stop this. Now, I say this idea is still slightly controversial in the organisation and in the movement, but it enabled us to tackle some of those arguments in a new way. So that's another thing that I learned, was being able to talk about an alternative. So from people like the Shrimp Welfare Project, from the Wild Animal Welfare Initiative, Richard Parr's new initiative, I learnt this idea of filling the gaps. If there's something that's not being done in our movement that needs to be done, then do it. Get on and do it. And I think that's been one of the most inspiring things from these new organisations. And it's a really powerful idea. And when I came into the League, there's this horrible growing trend about teenagers shooting wild animals with catapults. You might have seen some of it on the news. Not just teenagers, also adults. And often it's being filmed and shared on social media for likes, and it's just horrible. And at the time I came into the League, nobody was actively working on that issue. Now, it's debatable whether this is a sport, but it's definitely being done for entertainment, and it's cruel, and we're the League Against Cruel Sports. So we stepped into that space and said, what can we do here? And happily, lots of other organisations had also come to that thinking as well, and now we have a really good programme working together to tackle this horrible trend that's coming along. So bringing in those new ideas, and where there is a gap, just go for it and fill it. I know absolutely nothing about social media. I feel very, very ancient when we're using Hoover apps to do, I like an agenda on a piece of paper. That's how old-fashioned I am. But from organisations like Protect the Wild and others, I'd really learned the idea of social media as a tool for engagement. And I think where I'd been previously was that social media was an outlet for the annoyances of the organisation. So something happened in the news, and you put up some social posts as a way of responding to it. And every day there was that kind of responsive, reactive, let's just say something about this. We need to say something, we need to do something about this. And what I learned from those other organisations is, what difference is that actually making? It's making me feel better, because I feel like I've done something about this thing I'm annoyed about. But taking a much more considered approach to the use of social media, thinking much more about how it's a tool for engagement, how it's a really essential part of campaigning, thinking about quality over quantity was really powerful. So the League came off Twitter, we're not on Twitter anymore, and we've been thinking about how we can use this as a convening tool, how we can use it on Facebook, for example, to get activists against cruel sports together, whatever their connection to our organisation or others. It's definitely a work in progress, but it's been quite transformational for the organisation. From just about everybody, but I will give a particular plug to Animal Aid and their work on shooting, I'd learned the importance of investigations. And this is some footage that was part of a really impactful Channel 4 report about hunting. It had footage from the League in there, also from a wide range of HuntSab groups as well. And I would say that even if 90% of the work of your organisation or yourself as an individual is about political advocacy, it's about talking to parliamentarians, it's about changing the law, there is real value in having people in the field, for your credibility, for your authenticity, to be able to gather the evidence to support the campaigning work you're doing. So we doubled the amount of frontline people we have in the League. They're doing an amazing job, very difficult circumstances. but they're also not duplicating the brilliant work that other organisations are doing in this space. So their role out in the field is to secure footage that supports our advocacy work. They're not there to secure prosecutions. Nice when it happens, but other organisations are doing that work. And it's been really impactful, and it's slightly changed, I think, the feel of the League, that yes, we're there to change the law, but we've still got a foot in the game, seeing the animals firsthand. So from Wild Justice, from the Humane League, I learned about the importance of the idea of using the law. And I mean strategic litigation. I think Rob Espin's talking about this later today as well. And what an important tool this can be for creating change. And I think before I came into the League and before I'd learned this from other organisations, I'd been a bit fearful of doing this because it can cost a lot of money and you're exposing your organisation. You have to persuade your trustees that this is a good idea. But we've seen how impactful it can be. So we're not quite there yet, but I suspect that the League will be taking forward a judicial review about hunting in Scotland this year, and also taking some criminal trespass cases in England as well. And using the law as a tool for our campaigning is a new thing we've started doing. So that was a very quick gallop through all the things that I've learned from other organisations, and I could keep talking about that all day, because every day you learn something new from another organisation that are doing something really interesting. But my favourite question is always, so what? Like, so you learned some stuff from other organisations, you did it at the League, so what? Why are you telling us about this? And for me, the so what really is to avoid what's happening in this picture. I think it's very easy for organisations, particularly organisations that have been around for a while, or individuals that have been in the sector for a while, to stagnate. You do something, it works, so you keep doing it. And that's great. Anything that works is great, but there are huge opportunities out there to be trying new things. And they won't all work. Some of them will be glorious disasters, but some of them will work and they'll bring something new into your organisation. So my takeaway, I guess, from this for you is be bold, try something new, look at what other organisations are doing, and if it works, do it in your space as well. Don't duplicate, but learn from it and see how you can bring it into your organisation. And in that way, we can all kind of stay fresh, give ourselves something new to do, and challenge ourselves to try something different. And it's been quite successful at the League, but all of the credit for it is from the organisations represented in this room, because we looked around and saw what others were doing and saw how we could bring it in. So that's my parting message, is be bold and try something new. Thank you.